Okay.
Oops.
So would you like to present yourself?
Yes, I'm Susanne Torabi. I'm the International Student Coordinator, and I've been working at Phillips Academy in this role as International Student Coordinator, supporting international students since 2006. And as many of us, I wear all kinds of different hats. My role, my duties are to support international students in their transition to Andover and beyond.
Wow.
Oh, wow. And how has the international community at Andover changed or evolved in these 11 years that you have been here as international coordinator?
Quite a lot, I would say, because it's different dynamics, different trends I can see. When I came here first, there were few students from mainland China, for example. They were mostly from Beijing, and they were mostly on financial aid. And nowadays we have, China is the largest group, aside from Hong Kong. We still distinguish, even though it's all China. The largest group of Asian students is coming from Hong Kong and mainland China. And a lot of them are full paying members compared to in the beginning. It was a different time. I also see other trends, like international students used to come, and Andover was the big deal, coming to Andover from abroad and starting their Andover journey here. When they come nowadays, they are, a lot of them have already done summer programs in the US. They are quite adept to the American culture. And Andover is another stepping stone in their career toward college and beyond, and staying in the US and studying in the US for a longer time.
In relation with the Kemper Scholarship, what do you think Kempers add to the community that is different from other international students? If there is anything.
Well, one, they represent Europe, and Europe is an important country, I would say, for a lot of Americans, because many Americans these days still look back in their heritage to European countries, and it's still also by research a very popular, if not the most popular continent for American students to go and do summer abroad and study abroad programs. Taking languages from European countries, and the excitement of being able in 2 weeks travel all over the European continent is still very popular. What they have brought to the community, I would say a lot, because they are a small group. The Kemper Scholars are these days only 4 students a year, and they represent usually 4 countries: Italy, Spain, Germany, and France. And they are more vocal people. They belong to cultures that are ready to discuss, ready to talk politics, and I always, of course, encourage them to bring that to the classroom, and they will. While other students may be a little bit, just by their own culture, cautious of talking about politics, because that's something they are not allowed to do in their home countries. And we had just an example, actually, this week, 2 days ago, in the New York Times, there was a student speaker featured from Beijing, and she had talked about her college experience and enjoying the freedom to talk about political events, and she had also talked about her own journey, and that she could express her opinion, and named a few things that she really enjoyed here, and that was not very well received back home, and she's now afraid that people will penalize her for that. And so that reminded me that what we take for granted coming from other places of the world, including Europe, what we take for granted is not necessarily seen the same way in other countries.
Do Kemper Scholars sometimes have challenges in adjusting to the Andover community?
I would say that's very personal. We have seen sometimes struggles because, particularly for the much younger German Kemper Scholar, but mainly making a bigger leap in maturity and adjustment to the academics. But other than that, and that's a natural thing, I would say, because that is harder. We can have in the Kemper group a student from Germany mostly being around 16 versus an almost 20-year-old student from Italy, France, or Spain. So that will not be so evident in the group dynamics, but I know, and you have talked to Dr. De Vidal and Ms. Doheny about that, in the classroom that may sometimes become evident. But other than that, I think it's very personal. We had a student that was actually my first year when the student from, he came from France, and he just had, I think, different expectations, and he left after a week.
Wow.
And I could not hold him here. And that was very personal, very private matters that he, I think, just hadn't thought through, and he also was not really fully prepared for what it meant to be at a boarding school. Other than that, I would say they bring a lot to the community. We have had athletes, we have had very strong academically students in sciences and math. And the struggles, if they may have some, they have been along the way just like everyone else. You know, that test was hard, or that grammar quiz with Dr. De Vidal, I don't know how to do it right, but I'm just going to work harder and get to do better.
How close has been the relationship that you have had with the campus scholars? Has it changed during the years?
Again, very individual. I think what I've always seen is that the Kemper group among themselves, they have bonded well in all these years, and that sometimes can be a challenge for the rest of my advising group, because I always have the one-year international seniors and postgraduate students. And there's this unit of Kemper scholars, because they are neighbors by countries they come from. And for me, the relationship has usually been very good, because I mean, I'm German too. I represent their home country, one of their home countries, and it always is a pleasure for me to also check in what's new in Europe, how has the education changed. I make sure to ask how is history being taught in Germany, has it differed, are they still making sure that they cover the Holocaust? And it has been a pleasure for me to see what they learn, how they learn, and then to watch them thrive here at Andover and see how they progress in a very different academic and cultural setting. But the journeys are different, and so is my connection with them. But as we see behind, I like athletics, so I've seen with pleasure that some of them have come here and just rode into the varsity cycling program, for example, and help them to deal with what it means to represent your school, which is not so common in Europe, to represent your school in sports. And so to see that excitement of them doing something different here, and that's why they're here actually.
And then a technical question, like the committee that chooses about the admission of the Kemper scholars, is the same committee that chooses for all the students, or is there like a special setting?
That's an interesting question. That is a subcommittee and is kind of separate from the other admission officers, and it is a committee that represents the different countries. So we make sure that we read all the files, the report cards particularly well, and understand them. And we usually let the faculty representing those countries weigh in. Like I would always be able to say, oh, this looks good, and I kind of know the different schools that the German students come from. So I have a good understanding of that, but I will always listen in to my colleague talking about the French Kemper scholars, applicants, and see what they can detect from the profile. I mean, everyone in the committee reads all files, and then we make our selections and nominate usually 2 from each country, and then it moves on. So the Kemper committee is made of about 6 people, and then we pass it on. It always goes to Mr. Ventry as the Dean of Admission, and he will make the final call. Mm-hmm. But he very much relies on our thorough search and selection process.
And what are some of the qualities that you look for in Kemper applicants?
We look definitely for students who will embrace this very intentionally diverse community. We want students to be able to also bring in their own selves, their authentic selves, and that can be done with whatever they bring to the community. We have had dancers, we have had varsity athletes in competitive sports like swimming or cycling, as I mentioned earlier. But it could also be music and whatever they bring in. And we hope that they will also be part of groups and try what we ask every Andorra student to do, to just go to speakers and take advantage of what all that's offered here. Like you, Maria, you went to the astronomy, participated in the astronomy trip, and fortunately we have now also trips for seniors to take advantage of during the year, which wasn't there before because of our Lit World programs and some other domestic programs that take place during the school year, not just in the summer.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
And another question that specifically regards you, how did you come up with the idea of researching about the camper program and of producing something that celebrates this part of the community?
Yeah, for many years I've gotten little glimpses into what the camper program was about, and here and there I got saw some articles, because I used to host a camper luncheon where the camper scholars each year at the beginning of the year were able to meet the